Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. The modern host for the modern host blueprint for server security, a path forward for ConfigServer users. Now, we'll just give it a few moments and let people join in, and then we'll dive in after. We're going to have a Q&A at the end too, so just be prepared to ask your questions, and we'll get to them in a bit. There's quite a few people joining right now, so I think we may just give it 2 to 3 more minutes, and we should have almost everyone. We're close. All right, 1 more minute, then we'll do it. All right, so my name is Steve, and I'll be your host for today. I'm joined by 2 of our great guests, Eric from CloudLinux, account manager, who will be sharing his expertise and giving us a live demo later on. And Akush, um, he's also in product marketing from CloudLinux as well. And he will walk us through a modern security blueprint and how it ties into Immunify 360.
Hi
So
everyone,
together,
nice to be here.
I'm almost done. Together, they'll help us unpack the end of life of ConfigServer, what it means, and more importantly, what hosting provider should do next. So we'll continue as long as it takes to go through this. We're not in a massive rush, and we'll have time for Q&A at the end. Q&A at the end. Thanks. Of course, you can continue. We will be bringing up a poll question shortly. So what's your biggest security headache right now? We'll take a look into that. It could be time spent on managing security tools or bot traffic, security-related support tickets, performance impact. The list is quite long. So if it's other, then let us know what the other is. So while you're thinking about that, we will dive into the rest of the webinar.
Thanks everyone for voting.
Yeah, let's give it a few more seconds and then we can move on.
Okay, I think we can continue from here. So now that we've done that, I guess Eric or Akos over here.
Well, the times they are changing. CSF has been a very faithful firewall and protector for a lot of servers for some time now. Even I, back in a former life, recommended CSF, ConfigServer, and my favorite little utility that it had in it, the login failure daemon, to customers all over the world as some sort of protection to keep their system safe. And after, I don't know, 20 years or so of offering this free firewall tool, Chirpy is retiring, and we thank him for all the hard work producing that and offering for free. But we're providing a migration utility to get onto something a little more modern, and we'll go through that today in these slides that follow in the demo that comes. Akash?
Yeah, and I think one of the big questions here is, right, what do hosters need to keep in mind now when they're looking for a new solution? Because the old playbook that was good like 15, 20 years ago, that just does not apply anymore. And I think one of the most important concepts to understand or keep in mind for hosters is multi-layered security, or another common term for use this in security is defense in depth. Because what it essentially means that in today's day and age, there is no single security layer that can provide 100% protection. So a firewall on its own is no longer going to cut it. An AV on its own is no longer going to cut it. You need to combine multiple layers of these security systems together and ideally have them be integrated with each other to have an effective protection. Now, an important point here to mention is you can build this yourself. You can buy it ready-made from a vendor like us in the form of Immunify 360, or you can even combine multiple standalone tools. And I'm saying this to highlight that the idea is product agnostic, so this is not something that we came up with. It's pretty much a security approach that's a must-have in 2025 for all organizations. So what else do hosters need to keep in mind when they're looking for a replacement or a new modern security solutions? The usual nice to haves apply. So think about ease of use. How simple is it going to be to configure, install, and run it long term? And of course, the cost, because it needs to fit into the budget. That's like pretty obvious and a no-brainer. Just one sort of side note on the cost element, make sure to always think about and calculate with the total cost of ownership, because it's a very easy trap to fall into, especially for technically minded people who like to build stuff and tinker with stuff, to think that, hey, instead of buying something, I can probably combine 2, 3 free solutions or even build some parts of myself and be done with it. Yes, but in these cases, make sure to always calculate or at least estimate what time and effort you would put in or your team would put in. Put a price on it, like just use like average hourly rates for that, and compare that with the cost of buying a ready-made solution off the shelf. I think this is a very useful and great exercise to do, and not necessarily just in this security context, but any time that you want to decide whether to build or buy something. So that's a side note sort of on the financial element. But before you can decide what you whether you want to buy or build, you must know exactly what you need, right? And for that, I've made a blueprint essentially for modern security. And as I said, it's all about multi-layer defense. So to me, things digestible and easier to remember, I grouped the many, many security layers and capabilities and concepts into 3 categories to make this more easily remembered. And these are perimeter defense, proactive protection, and automated response. Now, to help visualize these, we can think in terms of medieval castles. And in that context, perimeter defense would be your walls, your towers, and the moats that surround your castle, and essentially making it very, very difficult for any attacker to get to you. Proactive protection in this context would mean all the guards who are on constantly lookout for anything out of the ordinary and having things like reinforced gates and just by default building on hard to reach places like on top of a rock. And then finally, automated response is your guards getting into action and then jailing any bad guy on first sight without you having to move even one of your fingers. So now let's see how these translate over to web server terms and what security layers and capabilities go into each of these categories. First off, your perimeter defense. So this is your front line, and it absolutely includes a network firewall like CSF was to block and manage IPs, ports, and protocols like you're used to and control the web traffic at the network level. This is an absolute must-have, but as we already mentioned, on its own is no longer going to be enough in 2025 because these days many threats target the application layer. So in addition to a network level firewall, you must always have a web application firewall or WAF. And what it does, it inspects the actual contents of the HTTPS requests and responses, and it blocks the ones that are malicious. So example sort of threats and attack types here, where a WAF is super, super helpful is, for example, SQL injection attacks, where a bad actor is trying to put malicious code into your database, or when they try to exploit a known vulnerability, let's say in a popular but outdated WordPress plugin, or even WordPress core itself. A WAF can help block these attacks. You should also include some sort of anti-bot or DOS mitigation capability. And this is to figure out who are legit visitors to your site and who are not. And those who are not, you should challenge them or block them and protect your servers that way. And by the way, this is one of those security features that you should not underestimate because this is the one that can actually save and give you back server performance by blocking all those bot requests. I remember that we had a very happy customer who shared with us a screenshot of their CPU load back in the summer. And in their case, it was very, very obvious, like a drop from a cliff when they installed Immunify 360 and it dealt with all that bot traffic. So that was pretty good to see. So these three layers dealt with sort of the web traffic. And beyond that, you also must have a more foundational type of intrusion prevention and detection system that goes beyond just web traffic. And it monitors server logs across all other protocols like SSH and FTP. And for example, if it sees repeated failed login attempts, which indicates that a bad actor is trying to force their way or brute force their way into your FTP, this is the layer that should block it. And finally, one last perimeter defense layer that applies to anyone who's also sending emails from their servers. You absolutely must have some sort of email spam protection because a single outgoing spam campaign can put your server IP on a blacklist, and then it will cause deliverability issues for all of your customers. And it's a nightmare scenario where you have to deal with and clean your IP from a dozen different blacklists one at a time. You don't want to do that. You don't want to go there. All right, so that's your perimeter defense. Pretty good set of layers and walls already. Now, what else should you do and what else you have to do in addition to these walls in a proactive fashion to complete your defenses? One element to mention here is threat intelligence. Now, this is not a distinct security layer in itself, but it's very important for many of the other layers like your network firewall, like the WAF, like the malware scanner engine, because it has to do where you get your rules from and the threat signatures from and how dynamic those are. Essentially, the question here is, do you only see and react to what's happening to your servers, or can you also tap into the data of other servers worldwide? And I can put a reference number on this, so you have it in your mind when you're doing comparisons for security solutions. In our case, on the Immunify Threat Intelligence Network, we have over 56 million domains, and that's the number to remember, 56 million domains. What it means that if we detect a new bad actor on any one of those domains, we automatically update the rules on all other servers that we protect. And this is where it becomes proactive, that even though none of your servers might have seen that bad actor before, you already have the rules and your servers already know if that actor is knocking on your doors, you should block it right away. So just keep in mind when you're looking for security solutions that the size and the depth of these threat intelligence networks matters a lot. The next proactive element to mention is a solution to manage updates and patches on your systems. Essentially, you have to make sure that your servers and all the software that you run on it is hardened as much as possible at all times. This is pretty straightforward and self-explanatory. You have to decrease your attack surface to the minimum, and a known open vulnerability in software is like a gaping hole on your wall, and bad actors can just straight walk through that. So this is especially important if you have to run things like old versions of PHP that are no longer officially supported. You'll still need a way to backport and apply security patches to that. But even if you have all your servers updated, all the walls up, constantly updating rule sets, everything looks fine. Eventually something will get through. Like that's a known fact, and you have to prepare for that. Either because it's such a clever or novel attack, or simply because someone just tricked the user into uploading a malicious file on their server. And this second one is an attack vector that's very hard to defend against, user mistake and user error. So for such cases, you absolutely must have malware scanning on those servers. And ideally, it should be a real-time malware scanner. So a scanner that can check files as and when they are being uploaded, as and when any file changes, and then detect and remove malicious code as quickly as possible. If you have a good malware scanner, that's half the battle won here, because it will work well for all the known threat types that it can match based on what's known as a signature. So a malware scanner is really, really good for known threats. But what if it's a brand new threat? It's another common security term for that is a zero-day threat that has not been observed and documented before. Well, for these types of attacks, you need something more sophisticated than a traditional malware scanner. And I sort of just label this as zero-day protection. The only way to deal with these types of threats is to analyze the behavior of the code, like what it's trying to do as it's running on your server, and decide based on that, okay, that this is normal code, I can let it run, or it's something malicious, and then the system should stop it. Now, as far as I know, there are not a lot of good solutions out there on the market. So in this case, Immunify 360, we call this security layer proactive defense. It's our unique approach to this. And actually, it's one of the key reasons why customers choose us, because we do have this built into our stack. And it's one of those differentiators that we can provide this advanced level of zero-day protection to our customers. Okay, so you have all your walls, you have all your proactive security measures up. How should then your system react when they detect a threat? Well, ideally as automated as possible, because your time is money. So if all you get is an alert when a security incident happens and you have to go in every time and deal with it manually, be it updating firewall rules or configurations or removing malware manually, that's very, very inefficient. It's taking your precious time away from your business, from your other priorities and your other projects. So you want to automate as much of the security response as possible, which means automated malware removal on detection, no delay, no wait whatsoever. It means automatically updating the firewall rules and blocking the new attackers that the system detects. It also means syncing these attack patterns and threat information to all of your servers. So this is where it ties back to that whole threat intelligence topics, where it's not just one server in isolation, like these work together and the rules are distributed across all the servers so they can reinforce their protection. And very, very importantly, it also means automated smart integrations across the various security layers. Now, what do I mean by this? What's a good example of this? Let's consider that your system logs a user login on one of your accounts, and shortly after, malware is detected. Ideally, a security solution should not only remove that malware, but in this instance, it should also reset the user's login credentials, because it's very, very highly likely that it was compromised. And this is the only way to break the reinfection cycle. If we only remove the malware, the attacker could come back in because they have access to the user password and deploy a new malicious payload again. So this is one of those things that you could do manually, but really you shouldn't. Like, this is one of those things that we can very easy and very well automate. So to recap, look to have servers with all of these critical security layers and automate the security response as much as possible. If you have all of these elements combined, believe me that they are going to make your life a lot easier. And I think it's not going to be a surprise that we use exactly this blueprint at Immunify. And by today, we can proudly say that our flagship product, Immunify 360, has all of these areas covered, either as part of the core platform or as add-ons like Immunify email for the spam protection element that maybe not everyone needs, but only those servers that do send and receive email, and components like security patching for applications like WordPress and WordPress plugins. We have Immunify patch for that, and the rest is pretty much included in the base platform. Plus, we have the added benefit of the extremely large threat intelligence network that I've mentioned with the 56 million domains. That's a pretty huge plus overall. And the great thing is that we can actually show how this works in a real life demo, how we do security with Immunify 360, and how easy it is to use for a server admin. Right, Eric?
It's exactly right, Akash.
All right,
Let
then
me show you how that looks right away right now.
I'll just stop sharing and then you can grab it. It's all yours.
All right. Well, Akash mentioned a very common problem that happens is user error. So a user might accidentally do something to infect their system. So I'm grabbing some malware right now. And then you've got a server full of bad stuff that happens. Let's kind of see what happens on here together. Immunify 360 has a dashboard. It doesn't matter what sort of product you have. If you have Plesk, cPanel, or something else you wrote yourself, this is still going to be the home, and it's going to look the same for most folks. All the tools are across the top, and the settings are over here under the gear, and notifications from us come here, and then you can contact us as well. You get a nice layout of what's going on with your system. You see malicious files that got cleaned, any spam or ham that you have on the system, and just where over in the world everything is happening to my system at a glance. If you have several systems, you can link them together and hop across between each one. The incidents tab will really kind of show you just how much traffic, bad traffic, is coming into your server. This is my system over here in the other room on a residential connection, and even I'm getting crawled by TikTok. My sites are getting this sort of bot traffic all the time. Pretty much constantly. And if you play Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego, you can use your facts to see all the flags from the nations and countries it comes from. The firewall, we publish rules of known bad actors out here in the cloud, and we also let your server promote bad actors who have basically failed to log in. You'll see that my firewall is full of people who failed to remediate themselves when they were coming to the website. That's usually just as simple as a very simple JavaScript challenge will pop up, and they just have to wait through it. Bots don't have the capability to do that with their browser, and it's not as complicated as like selecting a motorcycle or a bicycle in Google reCAPTCHA, because I always feel like there's like a corner into a block, and should I select it or not? And that just gets that stress to go away. CSF had a very complicated firewall where you could put different fields. We pre-populate that with what we see open, and you can just pretty much copy and paste between the two of those here. We have a protection for email. This is all me, unfortunately, and so this is outbound protection for your customers to make sure your reputation is clean. I have most of mine as good traffic, and so you can see that in here. Customers get a comfortable way of doing this as well in their user land interface. We'll have inbound scanning as well, probably next year. The malware scanner is the heart of our product. This is where you'll see problems that come into your system. We scan the files, of course, the cron jobs on the system, because they're used quite a bit to reinfect the server once it has been infected. And then we're going to scan the database, because sometimes bad actors will leave JavaScript in the database to reinfect the system. And so this will detect that right away. You can start a scan really easily just in a path. As you see here a few minutes ago, it's detected the files I had infected the server with. I guess in the history here, you'll see what it actually did with them. It tried to recover from the backup, but since those were brand new files, there was nothing there to recover. And so it just removed the malicious lines from the server, from the file here. If you wanted to start a scan yourself, it's just a directory, like your home directories are all covered here, and you could hit start and they would get into the queue and get scanned one by one. It doesn't put a lot of load on the server because we make a lot of effort to not scan files that haven't changed when the definitions haven't changed. So I kind of liken it to playing poker. A lot of poker is not really playing cards. If you have a bad hand, you don't play. Well, in this case, we'll know that that file hasn't changed. It's not different, and our definitions haven't changed, so we won't scan those. But if they have, we'll scan those files, of course. Proactive defense is great for just threats we didn't know about, like 0 days. So one way of making 0 days is, vibe coding with malware you already have, and to change it into looking like something different. Proactive defense would catch this right away and know your website's doing something completely different than it's ever done before, and catch it right here in the events. Reputation management, if you did run afoul, this would know that your websites are blocked and shown to you. It's typically empty once you've been running 360, but some folks, come to us with infected systems, and so this is how they get clean afterwards. Kernel Care is probably the one part of the product that's not on by default, and this is our live patching solution that we sell under another brand. But for web hosting, this means you don't have to reboot, because everyone loves rebooting their system and downtime, and maybe it'll come up or won't, or file systems are in a different place than where you left them. Maybe that's just my systems. But this will keep you from having to reboot. We check a couple times a day to make sure that you have the latest kernel patch. And if you don't, we'll apply it memory in real time, and you can go about your business and reboot when you're ready. I think like once a quarter is a nice place personally. So in the settings, notifications, if you have any notifications, you can put anything you'd like as long as it's Linux in here. Most folks like webhooks, so you could have a curl to something like your Slack notifications, or I like Nifty as a notification system that can tell my cell phone or my desktop to take a look and change something. Let's see, we have a couple attributions that aren't very exciting here. You can disable rules. The backups, you can configure those to use your on-system backups, which I really recommend, because the best replacement for malware is the file that was there before. Configuring the malware scanner, you can have it use more or less CPU resources. You might want to turn it up full blast if you think you have malware and you want to run through a scan very quickly, like we're running a scan right now. So that's probably not the best idea. We'll leave a little bit available to us to run the rest of the demo. You can automatically scan every modified files. I don't optimize this because in the demo process, I want these to show up as fast as possible, which means in my 10 or 5 files I put down, it might scan 3 the first minute just because it took them a couple of seconds to lay down on the file system. We automatically scan anything that's added to the system through several different mechanisms in the product. We also can use something called rapid scan and hyperscan to scan a lot of files at once using regular expressions. And rapid scan helps us do that, not to scan a file we already know, or to use cloud assisted scan. We don't want everyone scanning every WordPress core file. We already know what those are. We downloaded those and added their hashes to our known good system a long time ago, like every time WordPress puts out a release. So you don't have to scan those every day. If they haven't changed from what we know they are, we sort of send that seal of approval and your website's fast. And then this is the checkbox for the database scanner. It's on by default. All of our options are gradually introduced as we add new features. They're experimental for customers to turn on, and then we turn them on default for new customers, and then we turn them on for everyone else, and we start recommending it up here in the notifications. I scan every day because I work for a malware scanning company. But by default, most customers scan once a week. If you can tolerate it, just make your system safer. And this is where you would control proactive defensive settings if you wanted to turn them down from the default. This kind of happens. Well, this can happen when you're developing a website. If you're using your web server as your sandbox, you might see some new behavior that's totally new, and this is where you could kind of turn those down for the developer. And then in here, this is where you could install our hardened PHP. We backport fixes to older versions of PHP, and we provide that with, of course, CloudLinux and Immunify 360. It's just fundamental for running a safe and secure website on an older version of PHP. We know sometimes WordPress and PHP kind of flirt with the end of life dates. This will help keep that from happening. We use mod security to do a lot of our protection right now. And of course, mod security rules are like a giant list. You got to work your way down. To keep that from being a problem, this will only load the rules that are appropriate for your application. So if you have Joomla, you won't load the WordPress protection because there's a lot of rules there, and vice versa. And then the minimize list just sort of collides them together to make that list as fast as possible. We also have a WordPress add-on that you can put into your WordPress sites to show that they're safe and secure, and you can manage that here. All right. That's about all I have to show. Back to you, Steve. You're on mute.
Oh, Steve, you're on mute.
That happens a lot in our industry.
It
Yes.
does.
Thank you both for a great discussion and demo. It was much better than what I've experienced in the past. You guys didn't rush. It was great that everyone could understand. But now I'd like to open up the floor for some Q&A. So if you have your questions, just type them into the box and we'll get through as many as we can. I'll give it about a minute for you to think, and we'll take the questions from there.
This is always my favorite part. Stump the chump.
And no question is a bad question, so don't worry, just ask away. All right. Looks like everyone's digesting a lot of info, so while we wait, I can bring up one of the common questions we hear from hosting providers. Something like, what about server load and performance? Sounds like adding all these security features would eat up a lot of resources. That makes a lot of sense. So can
I can take that
Akos-
one.
Oh, Eric? Yep.
Akash, if you want to, go ahead.
No, no, no. You first, please.
Okay. Well, um, it's a net positive impact. After you see all those sites on mine that hit 101 hits and got blocked. It's a net positive impact on the system after a few hours. The bad actors are going to kind of graduate from being in Web Shield to being on the firewall, and then that traffic doesn't happen, which means all those services don't have to respond. The web server doesn't have to listen. PHP doesn't have to deal with it. All that stuff doesn't impact the system. So it might be more at the very minute you install the product on the server, but it's very quickly a net positive on the server.
Yeah. And what I would like to add to that is we put a lot of effort into that and we have made a lot of improvements throughout the years in Immunify 360. So I would urge everyone who might have tried it, I don't know, 3 years ago or 5 years ago to do a new trial if you're not already using Immunify 360 because it has changed a lot. As Eric mentioned through the demo, we now have these features enabled by default where we only check the files that have changed. We're doing the smart hashing. We're offloading some of the scanning and like the analyzers to the cloud. So all of that is to reduce the server load and make sure that we eat up as little of your uh, allotted CPU cycles as possible. And it's very configurable. So if you want to run it on deployments like 1 GB VPS environments, you can turn some of the features off and just keep those on that you absolutely want to have for that particular environment.
Thank you, Akos. Okay, so we have a question from Dave. He asks, does it offer IP lists, block report? Does it replace things like CSF, LFD, ClamD?
I can answer those. Yes, it does replace CSF and LFD. LFD, the login failure daemon, which is my favorite part of it, would scan your logs every 6 minutes. And instead, we're using PAM, which is part of Linux itself. And so that is counting the bad authentication attempts and getting to that 101 number that you see in the firewall. So we're kind of at the end of those, answering those questions. See, and there was another part of this. It offers, we do have lists that we provide that I was showing in here in the cloud list. We don't offer a block report, but it'd be pretty easy for you to set that up in your notifications if you wanted to do that. The product's made so that you don't have to be very hands-on with it. It's very kind of hands-off, and you can let it run and take care of the security for you and not need to manage it every day.
Thank you for that, Eric. Next question we have from Bob. Would love to hear more about the PHP setting where you might see something new if you are developing on the server. As a shared host, we have lots of newbies developing on the server. Akos, Eric.
Sure. So this is related to proactive defense, where we are checking the zero-day threats based on their behavior. And if you're doing new development on the server, that means you will have a lot of stuff come up that has not happened before. And for that reason, there are three options configurable in proactive defense. One is to terminate those scripts as soon as it detects as an attack, or if you do a lot of development, you can set it to log only, and then it will add the events to your log, but it's not going to prohibit your developers from doing that job. Anything to add to that, Eric?
Yeah, and typically newbie developers don't start mining for cryptocurrency and those sorts of things. It's really those drastically different behaviors that your website doesn't typically do that proactive defense is going to catch. Um, if somebody starts writing new code like a malware developer, maybe it's time to look at where they got their schooling at. Those are a bit sketchy behaviors that we get caught. We're really try hard to make false positives to an absolute zero, because those are the things that really drive you crazy.
Perfect. Thank you. And Bob is happy there. Let's go to Tiago. He asks, what about situations we need to open a specific outbound port for our user or IP based on what is possible right now on CSF? Something like TCP, UDP, things like that.
For a big port like to the world, it's pretty easy to just put in the interface and just to open that port up. I do that for a couple of services that are non-traditional that I run. But if you had something that was for an individual user, you could always fall back and use IP tables for like a specific IP address to open it up to a port and whatnot. If you wanted to open up an individual IP address, you could just add it to the global allow list, and then there's a checkbox for everything to let them have access to everything there. That would probably get what you're asking to get done.
Excellent.
I can actually show you if you want to see it too.
Ooh, yes, show that, please.
Yeah, let me show it to you real quick. So if reshare, there we go. So if I wanted to add somebody, I could put their IP address in here, and then I could give them full access and add it as an IP address. Of course, this would probably be a bad idea with this system here, but that's how I would go about doing that.
Perfect. Okay, oh wow, questions are coming in.
Oh, I love
Okay,
it.
this one is from Anonymous. I currently have Immunify 360 and CSF running on my servers. What should I do to turn off CSF and switch to Immunify 360 as my only firewall?
I can take that because it's a really, really good question. It's very on point for this presentation. And I can quickly bring it up on the screen because I think a week ago or 2 weeks ago, we have published a blog post on exactly this topic. So if you navigate to blog.immunify360.com, you'll find this article on our new migration tool. And in this article, we have the exact steps of what you need to do to migrate over your configuration script, remove CSF, and then off you go 100% on Immunify 360. So go to your blog and check it out.
I also sent a link over to that question.
All right, back to you, Steve.
All right. So we have one from Sahel. He said, I missed the start. What's the relationship between Immunify and CloudLinux? Does Immunify need CloudLinux to be optimal? How many devs on Immunify? How can you ensure it won't die from day one? For example, any price offers for new customers coming to Immunify from CSF? There's a few questions in there, actually.
Quite a few questions in there, yes. So let's start off with the first one. What's the relationship between Immunify and CloudLinux? So Immunify is developed by the same team that CloudLinux OS, so they go hand in hand, but it absolutely does not require CloudLinux OS. they work together well. They are synergistic, but you can use Immunify 360 on any other OS of your choice. How many devs on Immunify? That's a good question. I don't have an exact number, but a lot of devs working around the clock, and not just devs, but security experts and analysts who check the new threats as they are coming in, and we are constantly updating our firewall rules and the configurations. So that's the main reason why it's not going to die one day like CSF, because we work around the clock to make sure that it's operational and it's always there to protect you. Any pricing offers for new customers coming to Immunify from CSF? I would suggest reach out to our sales team and discuss your specific requirements. I'm sure we can work something out.
Yeah, we have deals for bundling and for bulk registration, just depending on your needs. So reach out and we can work something out.
Wonderful. Okay, so we have another question or another addition to these questions from Anonymous again. Second, one thing we like about CSF is you can download a global allow list from a URL. Is there a way to do this in Immunify so we can whitelist our systems globally?
I'm not quite sure how to do this, what they're asking to do here. Maybe follow up with me afterwards, and I can probably help you find a way to do that. Let's come back to that one.
Okay. This one next question is from Suhail. Is Immunify ready for NFT or NF tables? NFT table. NFT,
Yeah.
NF table.
Yes, it will be. I believe it is. If not, it will be very soon. Let me make double sure so I'm not fibbing on that one.
Yeah, and
Y'all
while
can go ahead
Eric
and take
is
the next
checking that,
question
yeah,
while
we can go on to
I'm-
the next one. Yeah.
Okay. This one's from Andy. Do you deal direct with managed service providers on behalf of customers who would like to add Immunify to their stack?
I work with those folks all the time. The root server administrator contacts us and wants to get malware removed from one of the customers, or the customer will bring the administrator into a call and we'll work together and get it installed and protect the system.
Yeah. So in this case, from our perspective, both option works. Like we really care about who manages the server because Immunify 360 is a server level product. So it's not by account or by website. And if you are the managed service provider who offers, like, for example, website development and website maintenance services to your end customers, and they only have access to WordPress, then yes, perfect. Come to us directly and you'll be our customer for Immunify 360, and you can bundle it in your offerings to your end customers, the website owners.
Thank you. Okay, so we have Diego again. He's responding back to the answer you gave him. In fact, the CSF allows something like, and I've pasted it in so you can see it. This means even if we have the port 10050 not open to outbound, we are allowing this port when the destination is 8.8.8.8.8.
Oh, you're mute, Eric.
That pesky drink of water. That makes sense. So the setting that I was showing where you would force and let someone with full access, that would do what you're asking there. I think that would go over the firewall.
Perfect. Okay. Andy comes back with the question again. Are you guys okay on time? Just want to make sure.
Sure.
Yeah, we keep going.
Okay, great. Do you deal direct? Oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah, you can mark that. Yes, we've done that.
This one's from Matthew. Will you be demoing the migration tool for CSF users?
No, but it's very boring. It's a Python script you run that reads everything, and then you do the uninstallation. I've worked with customers on the phone, and we've done it over a Zoom call before. It's very straightforward. It's copy paste into the terminal to get everything moved over.
Excellent.
And if you run into, sorry, just to add to that, It's very, very simple. If you run into any trouble, reach out to our support team and we'll help you right on the spot. So don't worry about that.
Perfect. The next question is from Tim. Is there a command line or CLI available specifically for the firewall capabilities? We use CSF multiple times a day to check if a customer's IP is blocked, unblocked, unblock them, block temporarily, etc. So is there a
The answer
command
to
line?
that is yes.
Ideally, you wouldn't have to do that on a daily basis to go in and manage these sorts of things. But we're a Linux company. It's even in the name. There's a command line for everything in the product. And we love it for orchestration with Puppet and Chef. But if you need to do it for your day-to-day management, that's absolutely still possible.
Excellent. And we have one more question left. If there's more questions, please send them in, but would be one of our last ones. Can you show what the end user sees in their cPanel interface?
Yes, let me get that up here. I'm pulling it up on my screen right now, and I'll go ahead and present and show it to you. This is one of my demo accounts. And so in his user land, he sees this interface. He sees what files got scanned and that sort of thing. And then he has a email interface. This customer doesn't have, I mean, this user, which is also me, doesn't have any email back and forth. And then a version of proactive defense that they could see too.
All right. And I think we have one more question left. It's basically an anonymous user asking because they missed it. Immunify 360 doesn't have to be on a CloudLinux server.
Yeah, or cPanel.
Is on?
Yeah, the answer is
Yeah.
no, and I can show it very, very easily because we have this now on the new Immunify product page. So if you scroll down, we have all the supported operating systems and control panels and web servers. And you can even run it standalone without a control panel. We support all the popular web servers, all the popular content management systems. So no, absolutely not required. We try to cover as much of the hosting space as possible.
Oh, David asks, so
Correct.
no Alma
We need
Linux
to
support?
update that. Yes, we need to update that. Very good catch. There is Almo Linux 10 support. Yes, thank you.
Thanks, David. Do we have plans to support the enhanced control panel?
Not yet, but it's very easy to write a custom integration. It's kind of like wiring up a Docker container. You just need to tell the different endpoints for Immunify 360, like where your web server is, so that we can serve the interface to you, and what users are allowed to log in and which ways. So like which users are admin users and which users are user land users. Typically, you can do it with like a group in your group files, or you can just set UIDs of a certain level, get this particular set of access.
Excellent. Thanks, Eric. I think, oh, no, we're getting more questions.
One last
Great.
one.
During the installation of Immunify 360, he already deployed the needed module to mod security work with nginx, or we need to build manually? I'm sorry, I'm just not 100% sure what the question was. I'll just...
You wouldn't have to build anything manually. We provide modules that you would use as packages. So in RPM-based distros, they'd be based off of RPM, and Ubuntu and Debian would be apt-based packages.
Wonderful. Hopefully that answered your question, Diego. I think, yeah, I think that's it. Thanks for all the great questions. If there are more, you can,
Yeah.
we'll
Last
gladly
call for
follow up
questions.
after.
Or send those
Y'all
our
have been
way
such a
offline.
great audience. Thank y'all.
Yeah, thank you for all the questions. Awesome.
Well, we'll give it another 15 seconds, but if there's no further questions after that, one of Akos or Eric will follow up with you after to answer them if you just email in, or they should be reaching out to you as well. I guess there are no more questions.
Awesome.
Well, thank you very much, everyone, for this webinar. And we'll be in touch soon. I think, Akos, you're going to leave up a screen of the contact information, I believe.
If I have that, but I think it's easier if we just send a follow-up email to you all with the recording and where you can get started with Immunify 360, how you can migrate over from CSF. So we'll send this information all over to you in an email so you have it.
All right, then. Thank you very much for showing up, guys. Eric, Akos, even Allison, and the rest of the people watching this. Thank you very much for joining this webinar today. Have a
Thank you
good
all. It was great to be here.
Bye, everyone. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.